the 10 divisions or 10 different topics that are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam are mentioned. And Shukadev Goswami is going to elaborate on these 10 categories in order to explain the topic of how the cosmos is manifested from the universal form. So these 10 topics are very important. The great Puranas, the Mahapuranas, they have descriptions pertaining to these 10 topics. And since the Srimad Bhagavatam is the topmost of all the Puranas, therefore naturally it must have a description of these 10. So the first 9 are important topics, but relatively speaking, in comparison to the 10th topic, they are not the most important. A description of the first 9 is important in order to illuminate or better understand the 10th topic, which is Ashraya. So in the first few verses of the 10th chapter of the second canto, Shukadev Goswami briefly describes each of these 10 categories, starting from Sarga, which is the primary creation of the 16 elements, then Visarga, which is the secondary creation that comes after that with the combination of the 3 modes and so on, including the workings of Brahma. And then Sthanam, which means the sthiti or the position of the planetary systems, and especially of the living entities on these planetary systems, and how if they follow the laws of the Lord, the plan of the Lord, then they will achieve the poshanam or the nourishment or the protection of the Lord. And under the protection of the Lord, there is a driving force for them to create things, which is the creative impetus or utaya, which is the desire for fruitive work. And then there is manvantara, the duration of the manus. The manus, they prescribe different regulative activities and laws like manusmriti, manusamhita, etc., for humanity to follow, to live a life that is conducive for spiritual development. And then Ishanukatha. Isha is the Lord. And so the descriptions of the Supreme Lord in his various incarnations, that is Ishanukatha. And Nirodhaha refers specifically to the time where the living entities enter into Mahavishnu and remain there till such time as the next creation is manifested again. Muktihi refers to liberation and the winding up of the whole cosmic manifestation. And Ashraya, the 10th topic, it deals with the Samam Bonam, to use Srila Prabhupada's words, the topmost topic of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the topmost topic of entire knowledge. So the first 9, as I said earlier, are meant to illuminate the 10th. And the Ashrayaha, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the Ashraya or the shelter for all the previous 9 topics. But the 10th topic, Ashraya or Sri Krishna, does not have any Ashraya himself. So he is called Swashrayashrayaha, Swa-Ashrayashrayaha. So he is his own shelter. He does not have any other shelters. So in this way, Shukadev Goswami, having spoken about the different elements or the 10 topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam, now he begins to speak of, he also mentions then as he continues in the previous verses about the 3 Purushas, the Adhyatmic Purusha, referring to the living entities who have senses, then the Adhidaivik Purushas, the demigods, who control the Adhyatmic Purushas, all of us. And then finally, there is the Adibhautik Purusha, which refers to the material body. So these three Purushas are interdependent on each other. But over and above this interdependent categories, these three, there is that one category who's supremely independent, and because of whom all these other three have been created as being interdependent. So neither the demigods, nor the individual living entities, nor the body and the material nature are independent. All are interdependent, and ultimately all are dependent on the supreme Ashraya, which is Krishna. So in this way, Shukadeva Goswami in the previous verses has described how he has set the ground, so to speak, for the creation. And then he begins the description of how the Supreme Lord is Mahavishnu, lies down in the causal ocean. And he generates the universes from the pores of his skin, and then he enters into each and every universe as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. So whether it is within the universe as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu or as Mahavishnu, the Lord lies down in the waters generated from his own person. And therefore he's called Narayana. So this is mentioned in the 11th verse, just 2 verses prior to this. So the word Narayan is mentioned here. It's interesting to just reflect on this word Narayan. So the word Nara means a person. Nara refers to that which comes from the Supreme Person. Amongst all the Naras or persons, the Supreme Nara is Lord, the Supreme Lord himself, Krishna. So that which emanates from the Lord, and specifically in this context, it means the water, that is called Nara. And because the Lord lies down in this water, or takes refuge of this water, so to speak, apparently, he is called Narayana. Ayana means to take shelter. Nara refers to the water that comes from the Supreme Nara. So because the Lord lies down in that transcendental water, which is emanated from his person, from his transcendental body, he is called Narayana. But he is also called Narayana because he is actually the refuge of that water which emanates from him. So that transcendental water has not come independently from nowhere. That has also come from the Supreme Lord, from his very own spiritual body. So this is the second meaning of the word Narayana. And elsewhere, there are interesting purports given to the word Narayana. The word Nara indicates the individual living entity, and the word Nara refers to the aggregate of all living entities. The word Ayana refers to refuge or shelter. So because the Supreme Lord is the shelter of the aggregate of living entities, therefore he is called Narayana. Very interesting definition. So he's also the proprietor of all the living entities. The word Ayana also refers to propensities. And the Nara, the aggregate of living entities, and all the individual living entities have certain propensities. And the Supreme Lord is the origin of all these different propensities. For example, we have a tendency to be angry. We have a tendency to love. So all these propensities, these tendencies exist in us because they originally existed in the Supreme Lord, or they do exist in him. So therefore, he's called Narayana. And also there is another interesting definition which is given in the Smritis, and which is that from the Supreme Lord, who is Nara, come all truths, which are called Naran. And because the Supreme Lord is a refuge or the shelter of all truths, and he is the supreme truth himself, from whom all other truths emanate, and in whom all these truths actually take refuge. So therefore he is called Narayana. So these are some of the beautiful ways in which the scriptures elaborate on the name Narayana. So having described Narayana, then in the next verse, Shukadeva Goswami continues speaking about how these ingredients and everything are manifested. And then coming to the current verse, the 13th verse, Shukadeva Goswami mentions, and I repeat, I'll read the translation again. The Lord, while lying on his bed of mystic slumber, generated the seminal symbol, golden in hue, through external energy, out of his desire to manifest varieties of living entities from himself alone. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada cites two verses from the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the 7th and 8th verses. In the 7th verse, Sarva Bhutani Kaunteya Prakritam Yanti Mamikam Kalpakshaye. So he says, O Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, Sarva Bhutani, that is all the living entities, Prakritim Yanti Mamikam. Prakriti means nature, Yanti means to enter, Mamikam means my nature. So Sarva Bhutani, so all the living entities, my dear son of Kunti, enter into my nature. When do they do that? Kalpa Kshaye. Kshaya means destruction. And today is Akshaya Tritiya. So Kshaya means destruction. Akshaya means indestructible. That which can never be destroyed, that which is endless. So I'll briefly talk about Akshaya Tritiya at the end of the class. So in any way, Kalpa Kshaye. So at the end of the millennium, then all the living entities, they enter into my nature. Kalpa Adau Visrijambyaham. And once again, at the beginning of the next Kalpa, I create again, and all these living entities manifest again. And in this way, the entire material nature is manifested again and again, and the living entities, they reside in me for some time, and then again they're manifested into the material creation. Then when the material creation is destroyed, they again come and reside in me. And when the creation is displayed, they once again go into the creation. And this goes on and on endlessly. So the living entity is in this endless cycle of being within the manifested material creation. And when it is destroyed, the creation that is, he enters into the Lord and again is brought into the material creation. So the purpose of life is to get out of this bondage of being tied down in the cycle of birth and death within the material creation. And the process for doing that is to become Krishna conscious. So in this context, in this verse here, the process of how how Mahavishnu actually begins the creation process is mentioned here. From his yoga nidra, his mystic slumber, which is not like our nidra or our sleep, because in our sleep we are completely in the mode of ignorance. We forget who we are, what we are. We don't know what our surroundings are. And elsewhere, as Srila Prabhupada states, when a king sleeps and a dog sleeps on the street, there is no difference between the two, because both the king and the dog are completely immersed in ignorance. They have no idea of their identity and of their surroundings. But the Lord's sleep or slumber is not like that. It's spiritual sleep. It is yoga nidra, in which the Lord never loses consciousness or awareness of either himself or anything else that is in his environment. So, being so situated in the yoga nidra, uh, the Lord manifests this seminal symbol, which is golden in hue. It is the intervening step to now set in motion the process of creation. And what was the intention of the Lord? That through the external desire energy, he desired to manifest a variety of living entities. So who were already in him at the time after the universal cosmos was destroyed. So he sets in motion this potency, and Srila Prabhupada in the purport mentions here three terms: Mahasamashti, which is the total energy, the total energy is Samashti, Mahasamashti, and then there is Samashti, which is the total creation, and then the Vyashti. The Vyashti refers to the three categories: the Adhyatmic Purusha, the Adi Daivika Purusha, and the Adi Bhautika Purusha. Now, generally, when we read, we remember these three terms, Adhyatmic, Adi Daivik, and Adi Bhautik, we think of it in terms of only the three miseries, the three kleshas. Adhyatmika klesha, Adi Bhautika klesha, Adi Daivika klesha. So what is the origin of these terms? They come from this particular categorization. So Adhyatmika klesha are those kleshas, that are Adhyatmika are those that actually come from our own body and mind, from our senses, etc. Adi Bhautika kleshas that come from the bodies of other living entities. And Adi Daivika kleshas are those that come from the controlling entities that exist in the universe, the demigods. So that is Vyashti, these three categories. These three categories are under the multi-total energy, the Samashti, which is under the control of the Mahasamashti, that is ultimately Mahavishnu. And Mahavishnu is an expansion of the expansion of the expansion, ultimately of Krishna, who resides in Goloka Vrindavan. So in this way, Shukadev Goswami has now started speaking about the process of creation. So I leave a few minutes to just briefly speak about Akshaya Tritiya. This is the Tritiya, the third day in the Vaishakha month. And it is a very special day because it is said that on this day, any activity which is performed becomes very long lasting, even if it is material. So therefore, on this day, people like to go and buy gold, and they like to do other ceremonies, like entering the housewarming ceremony, getting into the house, or getting married, hoping that the marriage will last. Of course, in the material world, nothing lasts forever. But in a material sense, the idea behind these ceremonies is that there will be longevity, long-lasting effect because of those activities having been begun on this auspicious day of Akshaya Tritiya. Many things are said to have happened on this day. I'm sure you all know by this time. You must have heard so many things about the Akshaya Tritiya. It is said that the Akshaya Patra was given to Draupadi by Krishna. Or rather, that is the time when this particular pastime happened. Draupadi, Yudhishthira received this Akshaya Patra from the sun god. And that this is the time when Krishna visited Draupadi and the Pandavas. So This is also the day, it is said, the Tithi when Ganga descended to the earth. It is also said that this is the day when Parshuram, who was born, or rather he appeared. This is the day when Treta Yuga also started. So there are so many such things. This is the day that Sudama visited Krishna in Dwarka. And this is the day when Vyasadeva began dictating the Mahabharata to Ganesh, who sat and started, writing. He was the first transcendental stenographer. So many such events happened on this day. As devotees, for us, it is very important to keep in mind that Akshaya Tritiya for us is important because it strengthens our Krishna consciousness. Because truly speaking, Krishna consciousness is the only eternal activity. All other activities have a temporary duration. So, to avail of the benefits of Akshaya Tritiya even deeper, we should try to strengthen our practices of Krishna consciousness on this day. We should chant better, we should chant more, we can hear and chant more, we can read more, worship more, etc. And then Krishna conscious activities, which in any case are transcendental and they give permanent benefit, will now be further strengthened by virtue of the fact that they are performed on this particular day of the Akshaya Tritiya. So, all good wishes to everybody on this auspicious day, and hope and pray that we can all together, collectively as well as individually, perform our Krishna conscious activities with even greater enthusiasm on this day and continue on till our last breath. And then after that, if Krishna so wills, if we are so qualified, then Krishna will take us back to his abode. And if we are not qualified, he will give us a birth in a very, very favorable situation where we can continue our Krishna consciousness, being born in the family of nice, advanced devotees of the Lord. So thank you all very much. I think I'm leaving a few minutes now for questions, right? So who, the moderator of the discussion, I'm supposed to leave time for questions, isn't it? Who is moderating? Hare Krishna, who is moderating the discussion? Okay, so if anyone has questions, you can then unmute and ask your question and then mute it back again. Remember to just mute your mic.
Sorry, Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj. Devotees, can you kindly put down your questions on the chat? Then it will be easier for us to just recheck Maharaj. Maharaj, there is one question which has come from a devotee. And the question is, can one stop fearing death without surrendering to Krishna? It's from Amnon.
Maharaj, questions devotees are writing on the chat.
Write questions on the chat.
Put down the questions on the chat, then it will be easier for us to just.
Okay, so I think, yes, that's a very good way of doing it. The first question is, can one stop fearing death without surrendering to Krishna? In general, no. Because that is the only way to be abhaya, fearless. So mostly everybody is afraid of death. Of course, sometimes there may be people with a certain kshatriya tendency who actually go out into the battlefield fearless even of death. So such mentalities are found in some Kshatriyas. So in this Kali Yuga, to what degree it is found, I don't know, it's rare. But from a spiritual point of view, generally, one cannot be fearless unless one has surrendered to Krishna. Next question is, has Srila Prabhupada mentioned any glories about Akshaya Tritiya in his books? I do not remember reading anything in Srila Prabhupada's purports or his lectures specifically on Akshaya Tritiya. If anybody remembers anything, you can point out. But I do not remember Srila Prabhupada specifically mentioning Akshaya Tritiya and the glories of Akshaya Tritiya anywhere in his books. It doesn't readily come to my mind. Next question is there a significance of Mahavishnu's slumber? Why is Mahavishnu asleep and not awake? Well, as I mentioned, for the Supreme Lord, there is no difference between his state of sleep and his state of wakefulness. There is such a difference for us, but not for the Supreme Lord. So whether he's asleep or he's awake, it really makes no difference for him. And as he lies there in his slumber, he gives rise to all the universes, and then he casts his glance. So he is quite active even in his state of slumber. How are our bodies considered to be adhibhautik? Yes, as Prabhupada explains in the purport in that verse, that sometimes the body is also called a purusha or a person because the living entity present within enables the body to act in a certain way. So just refer to that purport and you will get a more elaborate answer. Is there any required qualification to read Srimad Bhagavatam? Yes, one must hear Srimad Bhagavatam from the bona fide disciplic succession. That is the first and most important criterion. One must not hear from those who are professional reciters or from one who do not believe in the principle of pure devotional service, who do not believe in the personality of Godhead, rather they believe in some impersonal conception and so on. Therefore, the important thing is that one must hear from the proper disciplic succession coming from Krishna himself, the devotional disciplic succession. The second is that one must hear with faith and devotion. And with full attention, with rapt attention. So these are some of the qualifications for hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, next question is, what happens to the karma of the jiva at the time of annihilation? Well, it remains in the memory, so to speak, to use a computer analogy. It remains in the backup memory of the Supreme Lord. The Lord never forgets anything. Therefore, he remembers perfectly every single karma of every single jiva who resides within him after the cosmic manifestation has been wound up or has been destroyed temporarily for one night of Brahma, or after the death of Brahma, till such time as the next creation is manifested. So the Lord remembers everything, and then at the time of the next creation, it's all unleashed into the creation. Brahma is then empowered, and there are various agents acting on behalf of the Supreme Lord. who carry forward this memory, so that every jiva who is lying dormant in Mahavishnu or in Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, at the time of the manifestation of the creation again, the jiva is brought forth into an appropriate environment according to the karma that he had before the universal devastation. The right kind of planet, the right kind of body, the right kind of species, the right kind of circumstances. Everything is arranged by superior arrangement. Okay.
Facebook question.
Okay, Facebook question. What is that?
When the jivas enter and stay in the transcendental body of the Lord, do they become fully Krishna consciousness?
Okay, so the question is that when the jivas enter into the body of the Lord, then do they become Krishna conscious? No, they do not. So the question pertains to the time when the universe is destroyed, and there are many jivas who have not yet become Krishna conscious, who are not yet eligible to go back to the spiritual world. They reside within the body of the Lord till such time as the next creation is manifested. So are such jivas, do they become Krishna conscious when they reside within the body of the Lord? The answer is no. They are in a state of deep forgetfulness. There is a similar state. Like maybe during this lecture, some of you sitting in front of your computer screens dozed off to sleep. Yes? Admit it. Somebody, at least somebody has dozed off to sleep. Very rarely have I seen any Bhagavatam lecture where nobody nods off to sleep, and especially now when you're in the privacy of your own home and there's no one to see you, surely somebody has nodded off to sleep. So there are just a few moments or a few minutes of sleep. Then you may take an afternoon nap or something, maybe for an hour. Then you may take a good night's rest for maybe 6 or 7 hours. Then there will come the time of death, when we will be in forgetfulness for many months, some years also, perhaps, depends on the karma. And then there is a period after the day of Brahma, where we will be in Garbhodakashaya Vishnu for some time. And then there is the period after the death of Brahma also, when the whole universe is destroyed, and there we are in Mahavishnu's body for an even longer duration of time. So all these different periods of forgetfulness are the same, basically. So just as a person who is a non-devotee, when he or she sleeps, that person doesn't become a devotee. So similarly, even though the living entity at the end of the universal annihilation, even though he or she is in the body of Mahavishnu, does not become a pure devotee automatically, because there is a deep state of forgetfulness and sleep. One becomes Krishna conscious only by association of devotees and taking up the process of Krishna consciousness. Okay?
Is there effect of Kali Yuga in the upper planetary system?
Is there the effect of Kali Yuga in the upper planetary system? Generally, no, because these 4 yugas are specifically meant for the Earth planet. And these ages pass by very fast in terms of the demigod's span of time. Okay, let's come back to the Zoom. And where does Krishna say explicitly that he is the only God in Bhagavad Gita? Maybe this question is being asked by somebody who is very, very new. If you've attended the basic lectures there, I'm sure wherever you are, maybe in Bangalore or somewhere, I'm sure the devotees will explain to you the host of verses where Krishna says this again and again and again. So there are many, many verses in Bhagavad Gita where you will find this. So please attend the classes there and you will be able to hear and also read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, and you will see many such verses coming up there. How can we understand Krishna's plan for a sadhaka as he advances? Does the Lord give any hint? Definitely. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. So for one who is serving Krishna priti purvakam, with love, dadami buddhi yogam tam, Krishna gives that intelligence from within. Yena mam upayanti te, by which the devotee is able to progress further in the path of Krishna consciousness. So Krishna will give intelligence in various ways, sometimes from within, sometimes from without. So we are very fortunate that we are under the divine shelter of the Supreme Lord and his dear devotees, and particularly in the mission of his dear pure devotee Srila Prabhupada. Yes? Okay, so there are so many questions, but we are running out of time. Okay. Why is the Srimad Bhagavatam a natural commentary on the Brahma Sutras? Why is it that every sampradaya compulsorily must have a specific commentary on the Brahma Sutras? Okay, to answer your question, why is the Srimad Bhagavatam a natural commentary on the Brahma Sutras or the Vedanta Sutra? The answer is because the author of the Brahma Sutra is the same as the author of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that is Vyasadeva. And Vyasadeva in the Srimad Bhagavatam has specifically stated that the Bhagavatam is the natural commentary of the Vedanta Sutra. Yeah. So that is mentioned in several verses, so we don't have the time to discuss those verses. So that's the first point. And regarding every sampradaya having its own commentary on the Brahma Sutra, yes, that is a kind of a tradition to establish the bona fides of your sampradaya. So the Gaudiya devotees did not feel the necessity of having a separate commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, because for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the most important text. And the Srimad Bhagavatam is already the natural commentary of the Vedanta Sutra. So Gaudiya devotees feel there's no need for a separate commentary. However, such an incident happened in Jaipur, and Baladev Bhushan went there to defend the Gaudiya Vaishnavas from the challenges that were offered by the Brahmanas. Govinda Bhashya was compiled by Baladev Vidyabhushan, which is also a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Okay, so many more questions, but actually I have other lectures also to give today. So I think we will stop here. Thank you all very much for giving me an opportunity to be with you. And Anukul Keshav Prabhu, thank you for inviting me to be with all of you today. And to the devotees who have been moderating this discussion, and to all of you who are present here in Bangalore, but also from other places who are present on Facebook. So thank you all very much.
Maharaj,
Jai. Bol Premanande.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, Anukul Prabhu is online. He just wanted to thank you. If you can be there for a minute, please.
Yeah, sure, sure.
I can talk.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much for a short notice. You just you agreed to give class in spite of your health. We are thankful from the Jagannath Mandir Maharaj. So we hope see you again shortly.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Very
Thank
much.
you, Maharaj.
Right. Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj ki,
Jai.
Srila Maharaj ki.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare.
Krishna, Maharaj.
Hari Bol.